Welcome, beautiful friends, to the Way of Mastery. We're beginning our deepening of the keys to the kingdom. Last week we listened to the channeling, very powerful. Some folks, the first time they'd ever listened to it, they're back. That's always a great sign. So we're going to start. Who would like the keys to the kingdom? It starts out as 4, but it's going to become 1. And you are that key. You already are all you need. Anything anyone ever needs for awakening, they already have. You already have it all. Everything you could ever think about, desire about, or need. Wow, Kathy's going to be here tonight for her cool testimonial.
Oh, lovely.
Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this pathway, Jeshua channeled through a channel whose name is J.M. His name's John Mark as well. His name's John Mark Hammer. This body is John Mark Stroud. But he channeled these. The uniqueness was that he channeled them and they were recorded audios. They weren't transcribed like the Course in Miracles or the Course of Love. And they're really powerful. So if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to one, if you'll send me an email at love@onewhowakes, I can share one with you and you can actually hear one. It's really, really powerful. Hey, Kathy, we're going to talk about you later since you said we could. Great. Well, this pathway, he gives us what he calls axioms. Because, of course, he's trying to take our logic-based mind, which we're identified with, and give us a way to begin to shift out of that state of consciousness. And these are the 4 axioms that he talks about, which are kind of the foundations. If you look at the Beatitudes, which I have copies of that were translated properly, he's really speaking of a yoga about how to live these 4 axioms. Cindy?
I am created as my Father created me to be. I am free, and nothing sources my experience but me in each moment. Nothing has an effect on me whatsoever, save that which I choose to allow to affect me. I need do nothing. I do not live any ordinary moments. With each breath, my experiences are the stepping stones laid before me of God to guide me home. Therefore, I will bring awareness to each moment and allow it to teach me how to forgive, how to embrace, how to love, and therefore, how to live fully. The only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source.
These are not the way we were told to live. It's not what we learned in the world, but again, that was the point. Don't be like, oh, the world was bad. Well, we all designed it that way so that we could actually forget who we are. So this is about remembrance. Let go any grievance you have with what the world did in the past and just hallelujah. You've been given the pathway home with the Way of Mastery. So tonight in number 1, I want to highlight I am free. How many of us truly feel free? Absolutely, radically free. Thank you, Mark. But if you take number 1, what he's getting at there is the Father as the creator and free created his offspring meaning one of us, as free and a creative source. So we're always creating from our freedom. Always. We create our sense of imprisonment, our sense of ego, our sense of suffering, our sense of separation because we are free. We're using our divinity to deny it. That's the paradox. That's the cosmic joke. We couldn't actually be having a limited experience if we weren't using our unlimited self or unlimited power in order to create it. So if number 1, if we just want to assume, okay, let's believe that that's true, well, then number 2 has to go with that. If you're free, you can't need to do anything. You may be free to choose to do whatever you want, but you're certainly not obligated to do anything, or number 1, I am free, would certainly not be correct. And I can assure you from my direct experience with divinity, with the light, with God, whatever you want to call it, we absolutely are free, and we need do nothing. So those of us who are earnest spiritual seekers, just recognize you actually believe you need to seek something. It can be a helpful belief, but recognize you're at first denying something in order to say you have a need. We have to first deny our infiniteness. Number 3, no ordinary moments. How many of you do a practice of meditation or something to try and get present with what you're doing? We do a great meditation. It may go well, it may go bad, and then we're no longer in the now. We run back up into our head and head out in the world. Let every day, every moment of your day, every breath, as he said, be your meditation, be your yoga, about being absolutely present with what is. And when we say present with what is, we mean whatever is without you needing to define it in any way. Because the ego just loves this, oh, what is, and then it wants to determine and describe and define and make what is something that it can understand. The truth of the matter is there's incredible mystery, and you're never going to figure it out with your thinking mind. And then number 4, the only relationship that holds any value at all is your relationship with God. Can I tell the story, honey?
Oh, certainly.
So, or you want to tell it, why don't you tell it?
Are we thinking of the same story?
Yes, I'm sure we are.
Is there only one mind?
Now famous story. Early in this shift after John Mark's enlightening experience, there was quite a bit of adjustment that needed to go on within everyone else as he was evolving, and it was a challenging time for me. And at one point, we were I was having a loud discussion. He was being very calm. And I was trying to express to him this turmoil. And I said to him, you know what it feels like? It feels like you left me to go have an affair with God. And then, in the midst of all of this sound and fury, he says, would you rather have the old guy back? And it was like, no.
So this can be disturbing when we're in special relationships where I love you more than anything in the world if you agree to love me, and we put ourselves in these tiny little boxes. It's really important that each person in a committed relationship allow both beings, yourself and the other partner, to seek the truth first and let your relationship serve that. What it is we come together in a relationship usually to make lousy substitutes this way for what we truly want this way. So it can be threatening if one partner is all in with their relationship with the Creator and the other one's not quite ready to make that decision. But nonetheless, just look at that within the context of your relationships. And it's not just relationships with people. It's relationships like labels of parent or children or food or causes in the world, any of those things. When Jesus said, seek first the kingdom, he really meant seek first your Father's will. And then you will be guided in all ways. All knowledge, all wisdom, all power will be added unto you. I suspect that's not the way most people operate. We tend to only ask for help when we find ourselves in the gutter. But nonetheless, it's important that you have that relationship with God or with your guide or whoever you consider the higher self to be. And some people don't like God, so call it whatever you want. Big deal. It's really non-sexual. It's not a him. That's one thing we got to all get over, is that it had this very patriarchal wrap around it. So we'll call it the Queendom tonight. But the keys to the kingdom, which is what this lesson is about, and this is lesson number 5, and for those of you who haven't watched any of them, all of these are on our website, onewhowakes.org. You can click videos and you'll see every one of these deepenings. But the keys of the kingdom are desire, intention, allowance, and surrender. We all really feel conflicted about desire. The previous lesson was an in-depth discourse about freeing us from our conflict of desire. Intention's the one of these we're probably most familiar with. The kind of new thought, manifesting, whatever, I intend, which is a good way. You kind of point your mind or your consciousness in a direction. Allowance and surrender, those are two things that don't really fit in our lexicon. Allowance and surrender feel like defeat to an egoic consciousness. Well, your egoic consciousness will come to defeat. You can do it with great pain and suffering, or you can do it with grace and ease. And I would encourage you to do the latter. So here we go. We'll start with the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. And this is actually Jeshua channeling this prayer. So for those of you who are new, you won't even understand the words. That's great. If you want to, there's sheets on the other side of the fireplace that have the translation. Just sit back, relax, and remember this prayer is arising within your being. We have to get past this idea that we think we're hearing it outside of us.
WOM, the Washmaya, Ni te Kadash Shema, Te te Malkuda, Neve Sivinach, Akina the Washmaya O Baraha, Haulan Lachman, Sunkanan Yamana, Washwoklan Halpin, Akina Daphanan, Shwakin Il Hayabin. Ula talan el mission, el passam membisha, but had lachim el kuda, uhaila, utish bhakta, la alam, amin, amen.
Now we begin. Beloved friends, greetings unto you. We come forth in this hour to continue that pathway which builds the structure, the highway, if you will, by which you may learn to follow and therefore master the way of the heart. A way in life means to have chosen from all possibilities that one which will stand out as the way to which you are committed, the way to which you devote the whole of your attention by granting your willingness that the way be followed. And just as when you take a journey upon your earth, by making the commitment to take the journey, you avail yourselves of experiences that could not come to you in any other way. When you go to a university to pursue a pathway of a degree, Although you begin with a certain idea of what the pathway may hold or bring you, is it not true that the relationships which come along the way, the knowledge that reveals itself to you, and even the end result of the accomplishing of the degree, always seems to be different than, and much richer than, you could have imagined when you began your journey?
Of course, he starts every one of these lessons with now we begin. Doesn't matter whatever happened in the past, doesn't matter whatever you think about the future. Right now, we are. He could also say, now we end, because it's all right now. I like that he calls this a highway, this pathway a highway, not a thin, razor's edge, thickety briar patch to make your way home, but a frigging highway. Isn't that cool? Spiritual paths are usually not described in that way. But of course, it requires mastery in order to do that. In this second paragraph, he's pointing to two things. One, he's showing us that if you want to awaken, you've got to go all in. But he's also making a point that you could only be experiencing the dream of separation, your experience here on this world, had you not also chosen this experience from all possibilities. So those of you who think you were the accident of some backseat Chevy thing a long time ago, that's something you've got to let go of, because no one incarnates in this realm, no being, save it's not their absolute choice to do so. And then granting the willingness to follow the way, the descent into this realm, or as we're trying to do now, like the prodigal son, make the turn and to come home. Again, all in. If you want to be a brain surgeon, you got to go to class. You got to do the things that you need to do to become a brain surgeon. He's given us the 4 axioms. If you want to come home, you want to awaken, you need to start being willing to live those axioms and shift your state of being, because we had to take on a completely different state of being to have this experience. Just like if you guys were going to go snow skiing, you got to put on a whole different outfit, different equipment, and deploy skills that you usually don't every day. This is the same thing. We put on, I've heard one of Jeshua's channelings where he calls the body the ego suit. And we put it on in order to kind of cover us with a shell that we would think we were limited instead of infinite. But it's time to start undressing that. And he uses that metaphor in this pathway several ways. But one of the things that the ego will insist to try and do, and it's a trick, it wants to know exactly what awakening will be like. Oh, I hear there are no thoughts. I'll just be a vegetable. I won't, oh, it's all silence. How boring could that be? His point is, that's pointless to try and anticipate what the experience will be like. Simply make the choice to take the journey and allow the journey to unfold. Any of us in our wildest dreams can never accurately estimate what an experience will be like. Period. It always goes different than we expect. How many of you have ever, everything goes exactly as I expect? Aren't we surprised all the time? Well, one of the things about living life fully is moving into the mystery and getting wide open to the surprise. Ego hates surprises. Ego's all about control. Get open to the willingness to walk the way, the pathway home, and whatever that will bring, it will be richer than you could ever imagine. Because think for a moment, you're using a tiny little consciousness based on your past to try and imagine the infinite. Crazy. Oh, it's crazy. So just catch your time. The ego's trying to, or your mind's trying to anticipate the future, and just go, you know what? I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with putting my foot on that next stone regardless. I don't need to know.
Therefore, understand well that the way of the heart requires the willingness to commit. And commitment is nothing more than a deliberate decision that something will be so. And just as with all aspects of experience you've ever known, when all of your beingness is involved in the willingness to make a decision, there is literally nothing that can prevent you from the accomplishment of your goal. Rest assured, then, that whenever you believe you have not succeeded or not completed some decision fueled by desire, it is because you were simply not wholly committed. Or it means that you decided to change your mind. And when you change your mind, you literally change what you experience in the world, or the solar system in which your self spins.
I'm going to do this one first, if you don't mind. In the Course in Miracles, he asks us for a little bit of willingness. In the Course in the Course of Love, he asks for more willingness. Here, he's asking for your full commitment. Are you willing to commit fully? Because that's what it's going to take. Otherwise, you're just kind of window shopping. Just like with any like alcoholism or drugs, you're either not doing it or you're doing it. Degrees of doing it don't matter. You're either not drinking or you're drinking. It's not, I drink less and that's better. So you're either all in to go home or you're not. And if you're not, that's okay. Not many of us are ready to make that leap right away. At least be honest in your prayers and go, I'm really not sure if I'm really willing to go all in. And then ask the Spirit to help you with that. Because then there's fear about the unknown or about awakening that somewhere's within your being that needs to be cleaned up. So no excuses. If you're not experiencing a wakefulness or enlightenment, at least be willing to say, I don't want it fully. Be honest enough with yourself. We run around sometimes just professing our all-inness, how much we want something, and if we wanted it all in, it would be, because of the true nature of who we are. So be really honest with yourself. Jeshua busted my balls on this. I busted Marion's balls on this. Like you got balls, but... But the point is, look at all the times you profess to know. And this is what Marion and I had a beautiful exchange about. She said something, I said, oh, come on. And she goes, oh, that's right, I know better. Bullshit. If you knew better, you would be living that knowledge. You would be being it. So watch yourself, and this can be a little trick that the ego can play in a special relationship. It's like, I'm not going to challenge my partner's all in this, and they're not going to challenge mine, and it just kind of, it's not very productive. So be willing to just be simply honest about it. The truth of the matter is the Spirit knows, your guides know what your level of commitment is. When you get aligned with the truth of what's in your being, they can really shift you. But so long as you're deceiving yourself, there's not a lot they can do to help you. So be really candidly honest. And you're thinking all the time. I mean, and if you're thinking, you're praying. It's not like when we put our hands together, all of a sudden like a magic phone line opens up and then they hear us. They're listening to everything. Love hears every word you say. So if you're full of doubt all day and you lay your head on the pillow and you say, Father, I'm all in, be honest with yourself. This is about truly, not in a critical way, not in a judgmental way, but simply trying to move your awareness to what's true within your being. Because when those are in alignment, then you can shift. And you'll find that you decide to go all in, and a couple days later you'll recognize, I'm not all in, and you don't even recognize where you decided to change your choice. So I would encourage you to ask the Spirit that if there's an unconscious choice that happens out of your awareness to go not all in, that you be notified, and you can again affirm that commitment. Otherwise, you just kind of wake up a little bit and fall back to sleep. It's like drowsy. Ooh.
The way of the heart, then, does indeed require the decision of commitment. And rest assured, I say unto you, that when you wholly commit to discovering the way of the heart, you will discover a way of being in the world that is not here. You will discover a way of walking through life in which you experience being uplifted by something that seems to be forever beyond you, yet is within you as the core and essence of your very beingness. Your way will not be understandable to the world. Your way will not even be comprehensible within yourself. You will be living from mystery, moving from mystery to mystery to mystery, uplifted and carried by something that brings a satisfaction and a fulfillment to the depth of your soul, far beyond anything you can now imagine.
So he starts off here with the decision to commit. This is what we did when we incarnated. We took the omnipotent power of our decision, which manifests instantly, and we incarnated and we made our decision worthless. How many of you have decided something? I'm not going to have that ice cream bar, and 5 minutes later you're on your second one. We have completely undermined in our separated consciousness the power of our decision. And this pathway is largely speaking to the power of choice, just as he did in A Course in Miracles, because we're always at choice. We're just unconscious to that choice. We're having a separated experience because we chose it. So be willing to look at the fact that you feel like you need to make a decision over and over and over, like a mantra. You need to say it 1,000,000 times. Well, recognize in that you're truly, really undermining the truth about what your power is, because you're saying, I'm not powerful enough to choose once. I have to say it 1,000,000 times. Like you have to talk yourself into it. So sometimes that stuff can be counterproductive. But this is about restoring the power of your decision and the certainty that your decision is. And that might not be where you are now, but I point to it so you can start to work with where you believe your decision is not powerful. Because you've undermined it. You've deceived yourself about that. Whew. When you are wholly committed to discovering the way of the heart, you will discover a way of being that is in the world that's not here. So give up all hope of trying to anticipate what it'll be like. Give up all hope. The egoic consciousness has no clue, none, zero, about what the reality of enlightenment or what the reality of being in the world but not of it is. When the smartest thing our intellect can do is recognize, I can't know anything. That's the beginning of grace. Because then you can truly be informed, because he says that in this next paragraph about going to school, where knowledge reveals itself to you. Very subtle, but very important. You don't learn anything. Knowledge is revealed to you. Knowledge, wisdom, truth already is. So when you learn, you just take your veil down a little bit so that that knowledge can inform you. That's the other way around, because we think we're born empty with no knowledge and we have to go out there and learn it. Knowledge already is. Omnipotence already is. Whew. So you completely don't know what's going on in your consciousness. You just rest in this mystery of mysteries of mysteries. And when he repeats himself, he's making a point. So just look in your consciousness how you determine truth by your ability to comprehend it within yourself. Isn't that when you say, yes, that's true? Oh, I get it. You might have had knowledge revealed to you. What you really did was just a little bit stop denying the truth. And then the truth came in. Like your fingers in the dam, you take your finger out. Ooh, there's water. Well, it was there all the time, but we're the ones that are kind of blocking it. So again, when you're willing to really rest in, I'm not going to be able to figure this out. I'm not going to be able to know it in the terms of concepts and thoughts and beliefs. This is going to take you completely beyond all of that, and you'll never comprehend it with this little tiny mind. So, but that's what everybody who's on a spiritual path is trying to do, is figure it out. When I figure this out. And you alternately are trying to, and then the mind says, you'll never figure it out. So when the mind says that, yeah, I won't, and I'm great with that. That's cool. Because if I can rest in the emptiness, but I'm willing to have truth revealed to me, not that I have to run out and discover it, then it will come. And you'll be uplifted and carried by something that brings a satisfaction and a fulfillment to the depth of your soul. Can anyone in this room say you are satisfied and fulfilled to the depth of your soul? But the ego will tell you over and over and over that you will lose something in awakening. This is what you will get. You won't lose anything except the sense that that's not the truth. Not such a big loss, is it? But man, the ego is great at telling us trick after trick after trick after trick that we're going to lose something. You won't. You'll actually get this.
Is it worth it then to commit to the way of the heart? Yes. The way of the heart culminates with the recognition that you do not live life at all, but rather that life is living you. One of its characteristics is the development of the witness, a quality of consciousness, a way of being in which you seem to be witnessing everything that arises and flows through you and around you from a place of utter stillness.
In the second line, well, obviously, the first question, if you've got his list of suggestions for studying this text, he says, stop at the questions. Contemplate the question. Don't just rush past it because the ego will say, oh, yeah, I know that is, because it doesn't want to. Every one of these questions, if you truly open to them in contemplation, which means listening, not thinking, incredible things can be revealed to you if you're open enough to hear them. I can assure you that it is. He's assuring you that it is. But in this second line, it's really subtle, but it's important. The recognition that you do not live life, capital L, at all. Love, God is living life. And in the second one, that God is living you. Capital L, not little l. Just look at your consciousness, how you think it's your little l life you're living. That's the cause of all of our suffering and separation. So you're going to come to recognize the one truth, the one life, the one way, and that is living through you. And it's only our denial of that which creates the experience of our individual lives, which we take great pride in being responsible for. And all of that is simply pushing away infinity and saying, I want to do it my way. But this quality of the witness, I'll talk a little bit about this because this is really, really important. Anyone can look in their consciousness and see what thoughts are going on. Can you do it without judging the thoughts that are going on? When I work with people and get them to kind of witness, they'll go, ooh, there goes the first thought, I'm an asshole. And they watch it go by, woo. And the second one that comes and says, wow, that's a really shitty thought. And they believe the second one. The thought that judges the first one, they grab the second one. The true witness witnesses both of them without any movement. So the witness does not judge and is not identified as that which judges. But it's really important, and I'll use a symbol of seeing. Lucia and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. Right now, stillness is seeing for every one of you. Is anybody here efforting to see? I mean, is anybody having to put conscious effort to seeing? No. So the seeing is absolutely unconditionally allowed into your being. It's our mind which then starts to judge what we're seeing and likes this and doesn't like this. Reality is bombarding you with truth, but our mind is that which starts to separate it and label it and judge it and everything else. So seeing is a symbol of this utter silence. It lets everything in. And if you look around, is there anything that's trying to hide itself from you? All of creation is right here giving every bit of itself to you. Whoosh, 100%. It's not trying to protect itself or shelter itself at all. So the function of seeing, pure seeing, without any judgment about it, without labeling color, without labeling anything, that is always happening in a place of stillness. And I ask again, are you doing that? No, it's already there. Love is doing that for you. We then hijack it, claim it as I'm seeing, and then feel compelled to judge everything that we see. The witness is that which just sees. Same thing with hearing, feeling, all of that. So I only point to this to give you an example that you're seeing all the time without any effort. It's being done for you. Big L, life, is doing that for you. And you're not having to do anything. But when you claim that function and say it's mine personally, and I can judge everything else, you are thinking about something that is being given to you like unconditional love. So your eyes look upon a world unconditionally lovingly. They see everything. It's our mind that then says, no, it's not just one thing, it's all these separate, distinct, different, blah, 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 blah. So you can use that symbol of seeing as a practice of finding this place of stillness. It's already there. It's just so still, it doesn't object to the fact that we try and hijack everything. It's so still, we just usually don't recognize it. But it's already there. So this cultivating the witness is very important. The witness is not the ultimate truth. Just don't think because you can witness in your consciousness, there's another step that you take, which is the ultimate step, which is the pure awareness in which even a function of a witness can arise. But nonetheless, work with the witness. Because your seeing never judges anything. The thoughts come in and judge it. So you can see your thoughts within in that same perfectly loving, unconditionally accepting way. So those of you who are working really, really hard to get shitty thoughts out of your consciousness and fill it with just loving thoughts, that's okay. But the witness doesn't give a shit either way. If you'll step back into the witness, it won't matter. The witness is always at peace because the witness is not identified by the thoughts, good or bad. When Rumi said there's a field beyond good and bad, I'll meet you there, this is the field we're talking about. And it's within each one of you now, and you have the capacity to do it, so you can use this thing about seeing to start to find that place. And if you can do it with this world, recognize, wow, everything is being... how can sight limit something? I mean, you can't unless you got some kind of eye disorder, you can't block out and say, I don't want to see yellow. Well, you just can't, because sight is unconditional. It's our thoughts about it which are conditional, which are separating us.
Stillness does not mean non-activity. It does mean non-attachment to activity, whether it be the arising and falling away of cancer in the body, the arising and falling away of a relationship, the rising and falling away of a solar system. You will discover that there is a place within you that can look upon all things with perfect equanimity, perfect acceptance, and perfect love. For in mastery of the way of the heart, you will discover that nothing is unacceptable to you, and only what is accepted can be transcended. You will discover a way of being in which nothing any longer compels you. Not even the desire to know God compels you any longer, for the need of it has been completed.
I love that he speaks to some of the ego's tricks. This whole silence and stillness, the ego thinks it means, for hours. It doesn't. People interpret this to mean that there's no thoughts at all that run through your consciousness. That's not what stillness means. That means you don't believe any. You're not attached to any that come through your consciousness. This process of watching them and trying to push them away and replace them with others is adding energy to the egoic thinker. This is the witness is kind of like a ceiling fan. When you finally step back and you turn the power off, it doesn't stop immediately, but it starts to slow down. When you're truly witnessing, the thoughts will start to slow down. And eventually they do come to almost stop because you're no longer resisting them, so they don't need to persist any longer. So everybody who's out there trying to make your consciousness silent and pristine, that's not the point at all. Egoic consciousness isn't silent, it isn't pristine, and it never will be. But that's not what you are. Make this movement into the witness and truly cultivate it without any judgment, and you will remove the energy that is causing all that activity within your consciousness. So it's non-attachment. And that means non-attachment. Not non-attachment to the negative, but I love the positive. Non-attachment is non-attachment. If you're playing the game of good and not bad, you recognize you're in duality and you're saying, I only want half of it. The other side of the coin comes with it when you only pick one of duality. This is asking you to step back and allow all of it to come through your consciousness. no matter what it is. Cancer, whatever it is, what else did he say? Oh, a relationship falling away, or the rising and falling of a solar system. And this is subtle. In the previous paragraph, or two back, he talked about the solar system in which your life spins. And the solar system that this body's life spin in, is gone. Of the hundreds of people I knew and associated with, those relationships are all gone. But they left with peace. It wasn't distress. So you can think of that as a actual solar system out there, this idea of planets whirling around disappearing, or the fact that your solar system, and each one of you, your solar system has not changed multiple times in your life? He's saying it's going to happen on this pathway. Welcome it. Be ready for it. Know that that's going to come. You know, I think Mark and I were talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, and when you put the bottle down, you're going to be in another solar system. It may take a little while, but you can't stay in the same solar system. You can't stay in the bar and expect to be sober. So know that they're going to fall away. Our resistance is the mind telling us my comfort zone, my expectations, my friends are all going to go, and I'm defined by that, and that scares the shit out of me. You don't have anything to worry about. They'll fall away in peace. If the ego is encouraging you to push him away and it's causing distress, it's just a fear tactic. You'll know when it's the right time to put them down, because you can put them down in peace, like a toy you don't play with anymore. Only that which is accepted can be transcended. So if you can't come to accept shitty, horrible, murderous, nasty thoughts in your consciousness, they will keep coming until you can embrace them, until you can look upon them with perfect equanimity. Just like your eyes can look upon a beautiful rose or, where is it? A pile of dog shit. Your eyes make no distinction. They welcome the image wholly, Holy. It's the mind that then goes, this is bad. I don't want to look on dog shit. I'd rather look on the rose. Well, maybe so. The rose may be prettier, but the point is, it's the mind that makes the distinction, not the seer, not the eyes. Are you following me? So that's what he's alluding to. But don't let the ego trick you into this non-activity. Quite the contrary, you'll probably become much more active in the world when you're no longer of it, because you won't be bound by its rules. You won't fear people's judgments. You will just be moved by the Spirit, and you'll know that every way in the Spirit moves you will work out magnificently, no matter what it looks like. So this cultivating the ability to be the witness is really, really important. If not, if you're just caught up in the thought and the desire to replace thought, you're going to run a race that eventually will just wear you out. But I would encourage you to consciously make this movement. So stop trying to clean up your consciousness. Just learn to step back and witness it all with perfect equanimity. And you can use this symbol of sight, which I've shared with you, which everybody can relate to. You will discover a way of being in which nothing no longer compels you. The ego hates that, because it's been moved all its life by this emptiness or the desire to get or going after experiences or whatever else. I can't tell you the peace that comes. Life doesn't get boring, because the Spirit's got plenty of things that it probably will deploy through you based on whatever skill set you may have. But the peace, this is I need do nothing. You're moved by love. And it's magnificent. It's really deeply, deeply peaceful. And don't you want to not seek God anymore? If you want to keep seeking God, you got to really keep saying it's out there somewhere. You want to find it, and then rest. Rest. Ooh, and here it is.
Then there arises a way of being in the world that is indeed not here. For you will feel no restlessness, no need to direct your journey, no questions will arise. You will be at peace. And in that peace, the breath of God will move through you, and you will become as the wind, knowing not where you came from or to where you are going, but you will abide in perfect trust and perfect rest. And the world may not know you, but your Father will know you, and you will know your God. In the way of the heart, the most primary and fundamental perception which seems to fuel ordinary human consciousness has finally been transcended. The perception of a separate maker and doer has been dissolved, and once again you will understand the depth and the profundity of the simple terms in this sentence. Of myself I do nothing, but through me the Father does all things.
You can probably help in your mind if you take this first I and make it a little I with a dot, a separate I. No questions arising. And the no questions arise because that separated egoic consciousness, which perceives itself separate, has disappeared in the truth. So it's not that you stop asking questions, it's that the questioner who doesn't know has had full knowledge revealed and no longer has a question, simply rests in trust. So if you have questions, we'll ask them, don't deny them. You're not going to be able to fake this. He talks about this will be a way in which no one will understand you. It happens almost every spiritual path, especially the guru path, where people try and imitate what they perceive the guru's behavior to be, thinking that behavior equals realization. It's nothing like that at all. It's nothing like that at all. Let that completely go. That's another trap. And it is this kind of like the wind. You won't know. And doesn't the ego have to know? Oh gosh, I've got to know. If you don't know, that's fear in the egoic consciousness. But you'll know the only thing you need to know, I am. And you'll know that eternally. And you'll be fine for I am. This body's like a pawn. God can put it anywhere in the cosmos that He wants it to be. Big deal. Have your way with me. So, of myself I do nothing, but through me the Father does all things. We're going to go back to the symbol of sight. Is any of you doing the seeing? Is anyone consciously doing the whole process of seeing things? Wow. So maybe love is already that close, already giving all of itself to you. Of myself I see nothing, but the Father through me sees all things. That doesn't have an ego who's judging any of the things that are seen. It's resting in that infinite intelligence which is doing the whole thing. The fact of the matter is, the I that we think we are has never done anything and can't do anything. We just believe that it can. Love, big L life, has been doing the whole thing all the time, even facilitating our self-deception. So whatever it is you think you're doing that you take credit for, I can assure you that the Father is doing all things. There is one Creator expressing through all creations. Of myself, I do nothing. And when you truly come to recognize within your consciousness that the ego is nothing, the thinking mind is nothing, then you'll know that mystery which is seeing out of each of your eyes right now has been present with you your whole existence and has been giving itself to you fully your whole existence. And you can't even get yourself away from it. You can't get any closer to God or any more distant. You can only deceive yourself by how far you think you are. So hearing, same kind of thing goes on there. Whew. And he says the fundamental perception, the perception of a separate maker and doer will be dissolved. And that's all it is. The ego is a perception. It has no reality. It is a perception placed over reality to hide reality. In and of itself, it has no reality whatsoever. So it's about correcting the perception that I, as a separate being, even exist or have existed. And the depth and profundity of that goes way further than what I've shared with you. It's really clever that you would go, wow, oh my gosh, I understand that so much deeper than ever before. I got it. No. Go to the experience of knowing. Don't stop with a concept. The ego wants to keep you within the context of the mind by assuring you that you know, right, so that you won't actually make the next step beyond it where you can truly experience, be the truth. Abide in perfect trust and perfect rest. Who's tired? How many times you said sick and tired in your life? Rest and trust are your inheritance, part of it.
Of myself I do nothing, but through me the Father does all things. To rest in such a perception means that you have come to realize that the self that you are is merely a conduit through which mastery lives itself, through which love pours forth. You realize that there is nothing to be gained or lost in this world. You will know what it means to recognize that you literally have nowhere to go and nothing to achieve. You will become empty and spacious. And yet, paradoxically, while the body lasts, you will appear to be as everyone else. You will arise in the morning and brush your teeth. When the body is hungry, you will feed it. You will laugh with your friends. You will yawn when the body is a bit tired. And yet, through it all, there will be a quality of awareness called the witness that is simply watching it all, waiting to be moved by the wind of the Spirit. And though others may not see it, virtually everything you utter will carry the sound of truth.
That's cool. Rest in the perception of myself, I do nothing, but the Father through me does all things. So you can't do it. You can't do it right, you can't do it wrong, you simply can't do it. It's a matter of resting in that knowledge and letting the knowledge of that truth reveal itself to you rather than efforting to do nothing. Because you can work really hard at I'm doing nothing while you're doing the effort of doing nothing. So this is about resting in that truth. Not trying to create the body-mind's idea of what that means. And again, in that second line, mystery and itself are capitalized. You become a conduit through which mystery simply lives itself. You can't take any credit for it. You can't be responsible for it. It just is. You will become empty and spacious. Look at the way in which your mind defines yourself. Empty is not one of those ways. Your past, all your self-definitions, all your beliefs, all your descriptions of things, all your relationships, all of that is full. This is what Jesus meant when he said, empty your cup of self, and then it will be filled. That spaciousness will be filled with the spaciousness of the Creator, that in which all of creation is arising and joyfully and passing away. Whew. You'll really realize there's nothing to achieve and nowhere to go. I have people ask me all the time, if you're awake, well then why did you stay? Why didn't you go to heaven? Well, there's a misperception. I tell you, heaven is right here, right now. There's nowhere else to be. In consciousness, in the one mind of God, there aren't places. That's all part of the mind that sees and creates all kinds of misperceptions. There's nowhere to go. Get rid of this idea that heaven is some higher state. You can have that higher state right here in what you've before called a low state. The process of ascension is rather the descension of spirit into this plane. Not that we want to get out of here, but rather we want to bring what we are in truth and embody it right here. Heaven on earth. But he talks about this paradox, and if you've done a lot of Zen koans, it's like almost every koan is a paradox in and of itself. Because in our egoic consciousness, it's good or bad. If you see something, the mind wants to say it's yellow or blue. And when we transcend that and move completely out of that, all of a sudden, all paradoxes, instead of things being either or, it becomes yes and both. And they exist without any conflict whatsoever. Incredibly peaceful, because gone is trying to push bad away and pull good to you. It's just the beautiful paradox. And that's all creation is a paradox. The one as the many as the one. It's all paradox. But the mind will finally surrender that it can't figure paradox out and will just come to rest. And I think Buddha's line here was chop wood and carry water. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. For me, before enlightenment, I didn't chop wood and I didn't have to carry water. So I still don't have to chop wood or carry water. But the point is, the normality of life will go on. For those of you who, people think, oh gosh, you just become like some holy glowing figure or something. Your consciousness is glowing. You can usually see the glow of everyone else's perfect consciousness. But it's much more ordinary than you would imagine. There's incredible mystery in just brushing your teeth. If you're present with it and just witnessing it, you'll be amazed. You'll never be able to figure out how any of it happens. And it'll be the coolest thing. So all of you who are perceiving that when you awaken, you'll never feel tired, get rid of that. The body might feel tired. But you will become that witness. That witness is never tired. It's ever present. It's not working, so it can't be tired. It's just being. But don't try and take that experience of truth and impose it on everything else. That's another kind of trick that you can get stuck in. And this thing, everything you utter will carry the truth. Cindy and I were talking. We had some people come over to sit, and Cindy had sat with one of them. And they had asked a question, and Cindy didn't really feel like she handled it very well. And I walked up and heard it and said like 3 words, and boom. Just the truth just cuts through it all, just shoo, because it carries the whole vibration of truth, because it's the movement of spirit. It's the expression of the whole. It's the ultimate source of knowing. So it cuts through, I think in the East they call it ignorance.
You know not how Spirit will work through you, nor will you care. Because you see, when there is no maker or doer or director, it won't matter to you. That is what it means to live as the wind. For the wind does not concern itself with where it's been or where it's going. It is moved by some mysterious source that cannot be located at all. And yet it blows. And as it blows, its effects are experienced. Imagine then a life in which all that you do is not for yourself. Imagine a way of life in which what you do is not for anyone else. Imagine a way of life in which creativity, living, flows forth from a source so deep within you and around you that no language or dogma can contain it. A force and a source that knows how to express itself through you in such a way that it is constantly and only serving the atonement, the awakening of all of creation to the truth of God's presence. The way of the heart then does indeed unfold, if you will, along a certain pathway. And in this hour, we will address the stages of that pathway in a general sense. And then we will speak of the most important characteristic to be cultivated along this path.
So a symbol about the wind is the wind. The wind doesn't have any preference to blow through pine trees rather than across a desert. It's simply being what it is. And by the way, a symbol that Jesus gave me when I was walking the pathway was, air. We kind of think that's invisible. He was trying to get me to see the Spirit in the invisible, and that when the wind blew, it was God massaging and playing with every leaf on every tree and every blade of grass and every hair on your head. That it was the expression of God's breath, the Spirit right there present with you. So I'll drop that pebble in if you guys want to use that. But the wind is the wind. It's doing what it's doing no matter where it's doing it. Can the wind do itself wrong? Can it do itself better? It just is. So you take on this quality of emptiness in which love moves through you in this state of isness. You're no longer attached to, you don't have the preferences. The doer that had all the preferences is gone. Cindy knows. I might wake up one morning and say, honey, I'm on a flight to who knows where. Or the body may not wake up. I don't know. I'm happy to go wherever love would put me, because I know I'll simply be being the experience of love wherever that is. And I'm not attached to here, there, good, bad, right, wrong, anywhere. Whew. Imagine that life which you do is not for yourself. This is his whole thing, that giving is better than receiving. Because when you become empty and you're filled with the infinite, you will know you have literally everything to give. You won't need to get anymore. The getter, which is our separated egoic consciousness, dissolves in this whole mess, and you just become full. So gone is that mechanism to try and get. And it's just this one-way flow, like the radiance from the sun. Has anyone ever gotten a bill from the sun for its radiant love?
Not yet.
But yet it shines upon us and it asks nothing of us. Never has it said, oh, you schmuck, you have not been grateful for me. I've been present here your whole life, and all you do is complain and put sunglasses on and lather up with sunscreen. But yet I give all of myself to you all the time. Just like the seeing within your own direct experience is giving continually and asking nothing. God has never asked or demanded anything. That large L life has been living and giving itself to you completely. So completely that we could even believe we could deny it. So give. And the most paradoxical thing on the path for anyone who's awakened is this beautiful witnessing of how Spirit communicates this source so deep that it can't be communicated in any ways, but yet we try over and over and over. The Buddha had his language about it. Jeshua had his language about it. There's a different kind of language that comes through me about it, because we're just trying to point to something that can't be described. It can't be known in words in any way whatsoever. And the only thing you do is constantly serve the atonement. The simple recognition that everyone is God. God is, and that's all there is. And it's not like that's work. I call it plurk. It's more play than work, because you're already playing in the kingdom. Those of us who are not awake are playing sleepiness in the kingdom. Well, where is God? I don't see it. So that's all that you do, because all you're doing is giving all of yourself to yourself. You don't get anything by keeping it. You can't keep it. The sun can't keep its radiance to itself. You recognize there's just not even a concept that makes any sense about that. So it's just this flow of love.
First, desire is everything, and without it, not a thing can arise. Therefore, indeed, what you desire is of utmost importance. Desire, then, perfect union with God. Desire, then, to be Christ Incarnate. Desire, then, to be all that your Creator has created you to be, even if you haven't an idea what that might be. For when you hold desire within your beingness, and when you move through the process of coming to master the energy of desire, and again, mastery does not mean control, When you have mastered the energy of desire by grounding it always in the desire to be as you are created to be, then indeed all of your life and all of the subsequent or subsidiary desires will come to serve that grand desire.
So those of you who participated in Lesson 4 about following the thread of desire and went through the practice of allowing your desires to come up without judgment and simply writing them all down, it's like 7 times, and then following the thread of commonality through in them, I suspect nobody came up with perfect union for God. Perfect union with God, or being Christ incarnate. It was probably a lot of things. Money, trips, relationships, car, whatever it was. Health. It was a thing. God is not a thing. God is kind of a verb. It's a being. It's a movement. It's an expression. But He's given you, if you want the whole enchilada, and I know Mark talks about the whole enchilada, if you want the whole enchilada, this is probably what your desire should be. This is the desire of your heart, I can assure you. The mind, which did the desire exercise before of the body mind, probably desired all kinds of things. I can assure you, even if you get everything on your list, you will still be wanting. And then you'll get another list, and another list, and another list. It's not until finally you say, enough of idols, enough of other little things, this is all I want. And the whole thought of being Christ incarnate is not one that rests well within most people's consciousness. There's all kinds of negative concepts about Christ, how Yeshua's kind of thing ended, which by the way was the I'm back resurrection. That's not the way most people remember it. They remember this pose. But I can assure you that's the only thing that matters. So if you have other desires, work with your guide and say, I'd please like to replace all these temporary desires, desire for more money or more sex or more ice cream or less of my partner being mad or whatever, and replace it with this stuff. This is what's eternal. And He's saying if you get this, everything else from the big L life will come to serve that grand purpose. So you'll actually truly be getting somewhere rather than just riding around in a circle, a circle, a circle. And this thing about mastering the energy of desire, and desire is not about control. Again, if we go back to the witnessing thing, if the witness is desiring to control what's happening within your mind, that is not mastery. That's fear saying this should be here and this shouldn't. Mastery is absolute allowance. Because if you haven't noticed, you've ultimately allowed every thought that's gone through your consciousness anyway. Can you not allow it? You can't. You have to allow it. It's not like you can not allow it. So why don't you allow it in peace instead of allowing it in suffering? You ought to give it a try. I mean, authentically, really give it a try. Because that will also help you master the energy of desire. Because they're related. The energy of desiring to be simply as you were created to be, even if you don't have a clue what that is. And why not just go for it? I have no idea what I was created to be. Has nothing to do with this body and form and titles and jobs and careers in the world. Be willing to truly open to that. Honestly, I don't have a clue what I was created to be, and I'd appreciate some guidance here. I think I'd like to know. The ego wants to get it like he wants to get a FedEx package with a full-blown prospectus that you can review and decide before you sign. It doesn't really work that way. I mean, you can't know before you know. But I can assure you, if you'll make this movement and let everything in your life serve that one purpose, and that doesn't mean you quit your job. It doesn't mean that your life has to just, like on a dime, become a monk sitting in a cave. And I've heard that, oh, this would be great if I could just get away from the world. Well, that's not really bringing heaven to earth. That's taking fear and sticking it in a pigeonhole.
When you come into that state of being, nothing shall be impossible unto you. And why? Because you're not the one doing it. You are merely a piece of thread in a very cosmic tapestry, being woven by the Creator of all creation, who alone knows how to weave the tapestry of a new age, of a new paradigm, of a healing of this plane and of humanity. And so the first stage is indeed the stage of desire, and only by feeling desire and by not suppressing it can you truly begin to move toward the stage of mastery in which the energy of desire always serves that higher will, which is the will of God for you. And as we have said to you before, when your will is in alignment with the will of God, you will discover that God's will for you is that you be genuinely happy through and through, content, fulfilled, at peace, empowered, capable, responsible.
So dedicating the previous lesson to desire, if you imagine a Coke bottle, with lesson 4, Jeshua took your egoic desires in that Coke bottle, which had been suppressed, like the carbon, and he shook the hell out of it. And he got you to write all that stuff down and let the pressure off of all those egoic body-mind ideas that were suppressed so that they could actually come out and in a space of greater openness, because you maybe aren't holding on to the idea that just the right partner or whatever it is, that this desire might truly have the ability to land within your being and get some traction. So egoic desires or worldly desires are not bad at all, but be willing to let them come up and out so that you no longer feel the need to pursue them for fulfillment and follow this. If you've got one that you just insist, the world will be perfect when I walk that Appalachian Trail. Well, then get your boots on and go do it. Because if you don't run those out, then you truly can't make this movement and kind of go all in authentically. So nothing is impossible to you. It's in the Bible. Yeshua showed some pretty dramatic examples of nothing is impossible. But each time he said, "Why do you call me good? Of myself I don't do these things. The Father does them. Only the Father is good." I mean, recognize how tiny your creative toolbox really is. Spend one day in nature and tell me you can put your toolbox up against what created all that. Look at the mysterious body in the mirror and imagine for 5 minutes everything that it does without you having to exercise any control whatsoever, and tell me your mind's creative toolbox has got anything to add to that situation. The ego doesn't like it, but you have to come to complete humility that, shit, I don't know anything. Nothing. And I can't do anything. And again, not suppressing desire. And you know, when he was working with me on this and we took the lid off, I was amazed at the stuff that came up. I mean, some I would have, if I hadn't have already cultivated that witness, I could have easily have been in shame and tried to put the lid back on it. But that doesn't help anything. That only keeps the pressure in the bottle, the egoic desire, which you need to shake all that up so that it's flat as a pancake, so that only the desire for love moves you. And then that energy of desire will only serve a capital H, capital W, higher will. And then that brings you genuine happiness through and through, not temporary, not like, oh, that was such a great movie, and immediately you come out and you're clucking for your next fix. Where am I going to go eat? Or, ooh, that was a great pizza. I got to have another one for dinner. All of that will kind of arrest itself. It'll end because you'll be content through and through, completely. You'll be content whether the body wakes up the next morning or it doesn't. Not even that will matter, because the truth will be so deeply a part of what you are. Not only fulfilled, you'll be at peace, because God's peace just is. And just as the sight is given to you fully, peace is given to you fully, contentment is given to you fully, empowerment, capability, power, everything is given to you fully. It costs you nothing but your recognition that your separate identity got you nothing but pain and suffering. I'm not saying it doesn't have some high moments. Of course it does. Those of you that are parents, when you first see that infant's eyes, it's hard to say that's a low point. That's a pretty powerful moment. But the point is to come to that state of peace that is undisturbable. That's why it passes understanding, because the mind can't understand how can you be at peace when X, Y, Z happens. Because the witness has nothing to do with whatever appears to be happening as X, Y, or Z. Non-attachment. By the way, the witness has been silently non-attached within your consciousness the whole time you've been. You just didn't pay any attention to it. Or you tried to fake it. You tried to create non-attachment within your attachment. We all try that sometimes. When your will is in alignment with the will of God, I can assure you the ego can run you round and round and round about trying to align your will with the will of God's. I'll give you a shortcut. Father, thy will be done. End of story. Thy will and only thy will be done. And Mark added, in all things. That's the shortcut. If you want to try and figure it out, the you that thinks it's figured out is the you that's not going to exist in the capital W will anyway. So you might as well not give it the effort to try and figure it out. Thy will be done. Period. That's the simplest way. Father, what is thy will? Reveal it. Cindy asked, she had been asking for guidance and guidance and guidance. She said, I want an answer and I want it definitive. And she got it like a freight train. There was no way doubt could doubt the answer that she got. Demand clarity. You're worthy of it. Don't play around with it. Demand it. Thy will and only thy will, and make it really, really clear. And if there's not clarity, it's usually because we're in defense. So if it's not clear, help me get rid of my defenses so that I can know thy will, so that I can be moved like the wind.
Desire in time is cultivated through intention. For you see, you have used time to teach yourself how to be distracted by all of the thoughts and perceptions that make up this cosmic soup you call your world. And all of you have known the frustration of having a desire, and then as soon as you walk out the door, a friend pulls up and says, let's go to the beach. And you never make it to class, even though your desire is to get the degree. You have cultivated the art of being seduced by distraction. Therefore, it is necessary to utilize time to cultivate intention. For without intention, desire cannot become the crystal clear focus, the laser-like focus that can cut through the dross of this world, that a new creation can flow forth through you.
It's really important, and he did it in A Course in Miracles and he does it in this pathway, how he defines world is different than what you guys think. When you hear that word, you're probably thinking, world out there. The only world that exists out there is the one that exists within your mind, because that's all you can see out there. So when he talks about world, he's talking about your perceptions, your thoughts, your everything that you have draped over yourself and the world. So the world is not outside of you. The world he's asking you to cultivate, this witness, is inside. And the ego will try like crazy to distract you to what you think is the world out there. You want to just look at distraction? I mean, how many of you have a conversation and your text goes off and it's like you got to stop the conversation to look at the text? You know, you're watching something on TV and just look at how your attention is like a ping pong ball. If you start to cultivate this activity of the witness, you'll recognize you're in the witness and then, oh my gosh, I don't even remember not being the witness, and it's like an hour later. So he's talking about you have to truly cultivate that. So when the car pulls up and your friend says, let's go to the beach, or the thought comes up, you're an asshole, you got to remember, nope, I'm just being the witness. It's not to say you might not go to the beach, but the point is, vigilance within your consciousness is critically important. The vigilance he's talking about is the vigilant to be the non-attached witness, the objective seer, not the subjective witness or the subjective seer. And we have to cultivate that practice because that's not what we're used to. That's not what we're doing. But it is that kind of clarity that will cut through all of that. Because when you truly abide in that witness, you'll recognize none of the beliefs that run through your consciousness really mean anything. They only mean anything if you're attached to them and you want other people to share your beliefs. God doesn't want anyone to share a belief. God wants you all to give them up. And the ego goes, well, how can I exist without beliefs? You'll do just fine, I promise. Beyond all of that perceptual state is where you'll come to peace. But we have to cultivate through intention, and you will make this movement from the witness back into your egoic, thought-based, attached consciousness over and over and over. If your intention is to witness without any attachment, that has to be cultivated and practiced. This is one of the things he said when he said, be vigilant for the kingdom. Be vigilant for the perfect peace which is within your being right now. That which sees everything before any judgment arises. Be vigilant for that, not vigilant for the thoughts you like and the thoughts you don't like. That's the ego being vigilant for its separate kingdom. So, because that whole vigilance for the kingdom gets completely messed up. And the ego becomes like the rent-a-cop for the world. Your inner world, which you end up projecting out. So desire can't really become this crystal clear focus to have perfect union with God unless your intention is aligned to it. So the intention is moving into your experience that can move you towards the fulfillment of that desire. It's like a wish with no action is worthless. I know a lot of people, he's going to talk about the secret, the manifesting secret later in this pathway. But what good does these things you want written on a wall if you just look at them and go, oh, that's nice. But you don't ever move, you don't ever make a movement towards expressing them. So this is what he's talking about. Desire is worthless without your intention. Because many of you can see the desires you've had for a long time, but you've never moved on them. You've never actually intended that desire become a reality. I know lots of people struggle with weight. They desire to lose weight, but they don't really intend to, because the exercise of the practice of discipline never works itself in there. Whew. Because a new creation will flow through you when you're open.
Intention is not the same as holding a strong, egoic-willed commitment to make something happen. For the way of the heart recognizes that you have not known how to achieve the fulfillment you seek at the level of the soul, for the simple reason that if you did, you would have already accomplished it. In the way of the heart, intention doesn't mean putting your nose to the grindstone and not taking no for an answer. It means rather that you cultivate within your thought processes the art of remembering what you are truly here for. You are here to remember that you are the thought of love in form. You are here to remember that you are one with God. You are here to remember what I have called Abba, the Father, though it goes by many names, is the source of your only reality. And you are living in reality only to the degree that the One is living through you.
So almost everything on the spiritual path is absolutely, completely counterintuitive to what the world tells us, because everything in the world, everything in our separate consciousness is the opposite of heaven. So it's not about exerting a little will. I mean, if you look within your consciousness, that's never worked out so good for you anyway. It's really being wise enough to take his advice and say, Guides, Father, I don't have a clue how to truly allow the desire of my soul to arise and be fully recognized. Because your soul, when that's fully recognized, nothing can stand in the way of that realization. Nothing. Because that is what is one with the Creator. That is the one that will live through you. So if you truly believed it, you would have already accomplished it. You would have already awoken. And awakening is never a force outside of you. It is a totally inner thing when you completely stop denial. So recognize if you're putting the nose to the grindstone, you're actually cultivating the belief that it's a problem and it's got to be hard and it's got to be overcome. But that's so counterintuitive to our way of growing up. No pain, no gain. That's ridiculous. Does anybody think about some of these colloquialisms in the world? No pain, no gain. Here, let's put suffering and put it on a pedestal and goes, those that suffer the most and experience the most pain to gain what is absolutely worthless, we honor them, we cherish them, we worship them. No pain, no gain. That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. So this is about cultivating a thought process that is the art of remembering. How many of you have been trying to think of somebody's name and you bear down on it and it doesn't come? When does it come?
When you quit.
When you stop, when you let go. This is what he's talking about. Cultivating the art of remembering, not the art of thinking, not the art of figuring out, not the art of conceiving, not the art of imagining. Simply relaxing into I don't know and an openness to be shown. Remembrance, not creation. Creation's already created. It's about remembrance. That's a whole thing. If anybody's interested, I did a dialogue about the art of contemplation, which is really kind of being open to remembrance. It's a practice of really listening. And this thing about if you're trying to do somebody's name, the frustration that you can feel and the harder you bear down, recognize that within and recognize any sense of that, even the slightest thing is the clue, it's time to relax, it's time to let it go. And when you truly let it go, it doesn't mean, okay, I'm just going to stop thinking about it. It's like you almost forget you even needed to know it. You kind of completely let go of it. And then, when you're no longer attached to it, you no longer have a need for it, it's no longer stressful or important, boop, comes out of the blue. And we go, I remembered. We co-op it right away. Thank you, Father, for dropping that remembrance in my consciousness. Of myself, I can't remember a thing. He's going to get into this later in the pathway. You're here to remember that you are the thought of love in form. I could do a whole discourse on what he's trying to point to and what that means. The thought of love in form. Put that in your ego pipe and smoke it and see what you think comes out. I'm not going to go into it at length here because he's going to go into it later in the pathway. But this is the only purpose. If you're not making this your purpose, and if you're in this room, you're really close to going all in if you haven't already. This is the only thing that matters. If you're trying to change the world or do all kinds of great things in the world, all of that is just a distraction from you doing the only thing that matters. And the ego will tell you, if you do great things in the world, then you'll have God's favor and you'll be treated nice in heaven. Well, you already have God's favor. It's already within your consciousness. Just surrender to it. Let go into it.
Therefore, intention in the way of the heart means to utilize time each day to focus your attention on the desire to be Christ Incarnate. Intention is that energy or that use of the mind that creates, through consistent practice, the channel, if you will, through which desire begins to move down and re-educate the emotional body and even the cellular structure of the physical body and all of the lesser avenues of thinking that occur within the intellect, so that everything involved in your being is integrated, working together and focused on the fulfillment of that one grand desire to accept your function in this world. And your function is healing your sense of separation from God.
How many of you have had this experience of, I kind of want to do this, and a part of me wants to do that, and another part of me wants to do something else? Well, hell, how many parts of us do we have? I thought to myself, well, which part of yourself? You're one self, a whole self. Bring the whole self of yourself to this intention. Not, oh, part of me is going to do this spiritual path, but part of me is still working my egoic desire list. Just look within where you even bifurcate and split within your own consciousness. Even if it's just like the hypothetical devil's advocate to look at many different perspectives. How much time are you wasted that could be going to this effort while you consider all these multiple alternatives? I mean, the ego's like a Rubik's Cube with no solution. The more you spin on that thing, it's just designed, you think, oh, I'll get this thing just right, and bam! It's not all the same color on the same side. I mean, it's like a trick cube. You will not find the truth by whirling that thing around in your mind. Whew. Christ Incarnate. He's talking about being a channel. Not being a separate, distinct being, but being a channel through which love flows. And I know some folks in this room do this as part of their work. But we tend to do it, and then when it's over, we go back to ourselves. I don't know about you, but I think we can channel. I mean, when people come to sit, I can't tell you the beautiful stuff that gets channeled. Some of you come to sit, it's remarkable. Well, I'm channeling while I'm brushing the teeth, channeling on the shitter. I mean, the point is, don't make it a special, distinct, separate thing. Don't make a meditation a spiritual practice and then the rest of your life is something separate. It's just easy. We can get caught in those traps. So where you begin through consistent practice, mastery is you need practice to be a master. I can assure you, you're all already masters because every one of us mastered the belief that I am this body. I can't begin to share with you the amount of mastery it takes to pull the deception off from your infinite being to imagine you're tiny and frail and not good enough or not worthy or you're always whatever your crazy story is. And think of the consistency with which you think thought that validates those beliefs. There's great mastery in that. And where did you master that? Practice. Every day, every minute, thinking. So this is simply a process of returning the mastery which everyone's already using. It takes mastery to suffer. It takes mastery to actually believe the impossible. It takes a whole lot of mastery. It's about repurposing that and turning the mind back and allowing it to be re-informed of the truth. And just as it took practice for all of us to forget who we were, it also takes practice to remember. So rather than being pissed off that you have this process of, ooh, I left the witness and I'm back in it, welcome the fact that you actually get practice. That's how you become a master. That's how you remaster the truth. Be grateful. Rejoice when someone pushes your button, because that gives you one more chance to practice. And those that push them really deep, gosh, they deserve the biggest embrace. Because anybody can be happy when everyone around them is doing what they want. But that never really happens for very long, does it? The lesser avenues of thinking that occur within the intellect. He talked about this in the Course of Love, that we've made the intellect our God, and he says it's dumber than trash in a trash can. We don't like that. We're very proud of our intellects. But again, go back to, is your intellect manifesting any expression within your body? If it's so smart and that body is you, you ought to really be in control of that thing. To accept your function in this world, and he doesn't just throw it out there and then leave you to figure out and ponder, what is my function? Because you recognize you could only go into your past to try and answer that question. Well, if your function had been in your past, like he said earlier, you would have already done it. So recognize, I don't know. But he goes on to tell us, your function is healing your sense of separation from God. He says we have one problem and one solution. Not two, one and one. One problem, one solution. The one problem is we think we're separate. The one solution is not true. So find that and experience that for yourself.
How then to apply intention? Each day then, Just as you've used time to teach yourself to be easily distracted, you need only apply one question to which you ask yourself daily. What is it that I most desire? What am I doing on this planet? What am I committed to? Those latter are just other forms of the fundamental question, and as you keep practicing asking that question, the answer will become clearer and clearer. For you see, it is the question that influences, stimulates, gives birth to the answer. For the universe is always answering your questions, and when you ask unclear questions, you get unclear answers. Therefore, become crystal clear with your intention and remind yourself of it daily. My intention is to use time constructively for the relearning of what it means to abide in the kingdom of heaven and to fulfill my function. And my function is healing. And healing requires the presence of Christ. For only Christ can express the love that brings healing into being. Desire and intention. And in the field of time, these stages unfold as one matures in the way of the heart. Desire and intention are critical.
Good questions get good answers. So when you ask this question, what is it I desire most? Like when you're bearing down to try and remember someone's name, don't be so quick to answer this. Allow your guides or your higher self. That's where the question is really pointing to. What do I, the big I, truly desire? If you always think of that question in your mind to mean the body, you're blocking the higher answers. So it's about asking that question and kind of resting, relaxing, like you do when you can't remember someone's name. And then allow it to come. He talked about that in the last lesson. And ask clear questions, specific questions. We have this fear of God, and the ego tries to continue to mask that by asking really generic kind of questions. Ask really, really good questions to your guides. They're there to answer them if you'll actually ask and then shut up and listen for the answer. And if you've not cultivated that, you really need to cultivate listening. Don't fill up the silence by asking the question over and over and over and over and over. If you've asked it, it will be answered. Rest, wait until you hear the answer. And again, let go to your attachment of what that answer will be. We ask the question, and by asking the question, we've really already decided what we want the answer to be. We have to let go of that and really be open. What is it I, as Christ, as love, whatever that may be for you, truly desire? If you're not knowing and experiencing that that's what you are already, then you got to at least be willing to have the answer come from what appears to be outside yourself. Don't go back into your database of the past and try and answer that question. Whew. What am I doing on this planet? What am I committed to? They're all really the same thing. But he's asking you, if you can, start with what do I as love or I as Christ desire. Come crystal clear and remind yourself daily. Practice is only as good as you practice it. Just like piano, if you only do it once a month and you got a party, you're going to be awful nervous about going because you're not going to know that you're going to play it well. And this thing about being the witness, there is never a time, a situation, or a circumstance where you cannot cultivate that activity. You can do it at work, you can do it on the phone, you can do it driving, you can do it at the grocery store. You have no shortage of time to practice because you will come to live as that witness all the time. So use time constructively. And I'll be real quick specific. A lot of the questions that your ego, body, mind is going to want to ask are irrelevant. I mean, you want to ask about UFOs, you want to ask about crop circles. That stuff just really doesn't have any meaning at all. So I would even get to the point where I would say, Jeshua, I don't even know the question to ask. What is the right question for me to ask in this moment? And I would usually get it because your guides can help you with that. They'd be happy to help you with that rather than you having to try and come up with the right question out of your tiny separated consciousness. That's really going, okay, what is thy will for what desire is? So ask your guides in all ways to help in that regard. And only Christ can express the love that brings healing to your being. And we're going to talk about a testimonial here in just a minute of exactly Christ bringing healing to a beautiful being in this room. So next week we will continue our deepening. Kathy, are you ready for this?
I didn't know.
Well, you said. Okay, Cindy, here we go. This is a testimonial from beautiful Kathy, who's in the back of the room there. Stand up and wave. This is her on the right-hand side of the screen up here. She's dancing at the retreat. She came, like many people, to the retreat very conflicted and very confused. But in openness and in willingness, some incredible clarity brought. And I'll let Cindy.
Dear John, Mark, and Cindy, my heart is overflowing with joy and thanks for the wonderful changes that are taking place in my life since the retreat. I am awake. I have been on a spiritual path for many years, including years of studying yoga and the Course in Miracles and Love. At your retreat, my heart and mind finally began to open, and I truly saw the face of God. Now I hear the voice of Jesus loud and clear, and with this help, I have been able to make long yearned for changes in my life. In the early 1990s, while teaching scuba diving in the Florida Keys, I had a diving accident which resulted in decompression illness type 2, serious nervous system damage, years of severe pain, and the loss of a career which I loved. Years later, I was also diagnosed with hepatitis C, which by that time had already done serious damage to my physical body. I spent years on strong medications for pain and depression, and my life, though it continued, did not bring much joy. Today, as I write this, I have put down all my medications, surprisingly with no withdrawals. My heart is wide open, and I cannot keep the tears of joy from flowing as I write. I feel I am finally home. And each time I am with you, I know I have found my spiritual family. Please feel free to use this testimony to encourage others to join you in this path. The treasures it has brought to me are precious, and I want nothing more than to be able to be an instrument in bringing others to the peace of God. Yours in Christ, Kathy.
Thank you for your desire and your intention.
It's been some weeks since I've experienced any pain at all, and tonight, as I was sitting, I started feeling pain when he was talking about how important it is to ask the question. So I asked, what's going on here? And Jesus told me, you're giving birth. Of course there's pain. So the pain has a very different flavor now than it did before. A very different flavor. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'll say that when Kathy came to the retreat, she was a deer in the headlights. Don't ever think you're not going to get it. If you have just a little bit of willingness and you open, love will stream through the tiniest of cracks. You just can't keep the light out. So know that healing miracles like this can happen. And you can put down medications and you can heal long-standing pain, long-standing things within your being if you'll make this your purpose. Because when you're walking the life of this purpose, there's no need for you to walk it in pain. That was all part of the separated being. There's no need to walk to God in pain, like it'll be relieved. Make this commitment, and love will come up to support you so that you can walk it in grace. You can walk it in ease. And you will become a testimony to Christ, who does nothing but want to extend that truth to each and every being. And nothing is more rewarding. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Beautiful. Anyone else have questions or comments tonight? I know we ran kind of late. Okay, beautiful. Love offering. I don't do this work alone. I couldn't have walked my path to God's will if Jeshua hadn't have said, your will sucks. Are you ready to give it up? I wasn't at first. I was ready to give up my bad relationships, but I wanted more money. I wanted all that kind of stuff. But finally, he convinced me to go all in. And when you truly, authentically go in, the power of your soul is such that it need not take long and it need not be painful if you will surrender to that higher self, that capital H-W will, capital H-W will. That's a whole different H-W than we had. Or was it W-H? I think there was a president or something. It was W-H. But anyway, the love offering, there's a basket on the other side of the fireplace. Okay, Mark, I'll come back to you. There's a basket on the other side of the fireplace. Use your question to ask your guide, what is the perfect amount for me to donate in love? And if that comes as a dollar sign, great. If it comes as a hug, great. If it comes with a movement to do something, then do that. Those of you who are watching online, you can go to onewhowakes.org. In the upper right-hand corner is a give button. It will auto-convert international donations. So please, if you're so moved, if this work is moving you, be grateful for it. This is all our family does. I am totally sustained by love. And that's your love because it's my love because it's really one love. Will you ask and answer that question of what should I give from the big I rather than the little I that says, oh, I don't have or whatever. So anyway, I'm grateful to Jeshua and to all the beings who come into support and all your guides who talked you into being here. That's pretty important. If you think you're not being guided, how did you get here? You don't just walk off the street and kind of find yourself in this place. We love you with an absolutely infinite love, a perfect peace, and we're absolutely certain of the truth of each and every one of you. So if you'd like, you're welcome to invite our certainty to replace your doubt, and we will joyfully give it. Peace and beautiful blessings. A couple of quick things. Live stream. For those of you who live stream and watch at home, they have a new app. So if you're an iPhone or an iPad or whatever user, the app is a really cool way to participate. And all One Who Wakes videos are now accessible on the homepage, onewhowakes.org. So those of you who have followed around to Vimeo and everywhere else, go to onewhowakes.org, you'll see a video button. It's all on that one site. If you're feeling stuck in your journey, I'm available to sit with you privately in person, phone, Skype, whatever, or if you'd like One Who Wakes to come to your area and gather up some Course in Miracles students, Way of Mastery students, or simply people ready to awaken, we will come.